Say it again.
You name it.
Say it all again.
All again? All right, I'm the best. What's something you're better at? You name it.
All right.
You can't, folks. That's what it is. Let's jump into it.
I don't have. We only have about an hour, so I don't want to start naming things and then take up the
Oh
entire
yeah,
hour.
that's what it. Yep. Yeah.
Welcome back to the BG Perform podcast with my co-host, Coach Jerry Hayes. Jerry, how we doing?
Good. Busy. Summer has started, which means the kids are off school. They're in the gym a little bit earlier. More kids are coming in. So it's just been bang, 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 one thing right after another between sessions and assessments and classes, all that stuff. So it's been busy, but good. How about you?
I know someone else who said that. I know someone else who said that.
Said what?
Never mind.
I'm so confused.
It was an Epstein joke.
Oh no. Yeah, you lost me on that one. Damn. That's how we're starting it. Minute and
Yeah.
19 seconds in.
Anyways, it's been good. Been working. Been grinding. I got the birthday was this past weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Turned 31 years of age.
Hey.
As you can see, mentally, I'm still 14.
Yeah. That'll never change.
But yeah, so good birthday weekend. Enjoyed. I saw Mandalorian and Grogu on Saturday.
Did you like it?
Yeah, I thought it was good.
Nice.
Yeah. And then had a fat steak, New York strip, or New York sirloin with nice glass of whiskey. So
How'd you have it cooked?
medium rare. There's no other way.
Yeah, it's the way to go.
Yeah, exactly.
Go.
But we are back. We are back with kind of like a part 3 slash, I guess, just training 4 episode. So essentially, this episode we got a couple ideas, and we tried to be pretty. I don't want to say generic, but we want to talk about how to restructure your program based on what we talked about last week for some main things that people do. Obviously, general lifestyle stuff. So just want to get stronger, fitter, faster, that sort of thing. Half marathons, because I know a lot of people do the half marathons. So I'm going to put slash marathon.
Mm-hmm.
That sort of training. Powerlifting, right? And then jiu-jitsu, because I think jiu-jitsu has been popping off lately. A lot of people have been doing that. And then, so those 4 we're going to talk about today. And what we're going to do is, I'm going to share my screen in a second. We're going to go over the programs that we wrote last time and how we can adjust them for these things here. We'll probably only do about a week of each, and then we'll kind of discuss a little bit about the changes that we would make and kind of build from there. But anything you want to add on top of that?
No, let's jump right in.
All right, cool. So we will share the screen. All right, so just to kind of quickly go over everything, last week we dove into these 2 programs. Now, again, obviously, if you've been listening the whole time, you're aware of these programs were based off of the Chat GPT initial week 1 that we had. Then we took that, we talked about that, and we actually created like a program, and then we built that out in 2, 3, and 4 days. So what we're going to do now is, I think for the most part, I think people are generally going to be training like 3 days a week. So we'll take the 3-day model that we built here, and we'll add that down here, and we will talk about a lifestyle client. I'm going to delete these as well, because the other thing too, when we discuss this stuff, we're not going to talk too much about conditioning today, because you know, we can save that either for another time, but I really just want to dial in on the strength stuff right now. But we'll give you guys a little bit more insight on the conditioning stuff, just like a brief overview on like what we would place inside of that. So lifestyle client comes, where are we starting? Because I think this is pretty good, obviously off the bat, for a general lifestyle client. But are there any general changes you would make for somebody who's stepping into like a 3-day a week program?
Honestly, It's like I feel like we kind of built this out to be more lifestyle. We could, if anything, maybe bring the volume down a little bit, um, and like add more accessory stuff instead of like so many main movements. So maybe have like one main movement for the day, something paired with it, and then in the second complex, maybe like another main movement, something more accessory, and then our C complex across the board is pretty accessory as is. So I think if somebody's just starting in the gym, just lifestyle, get them moving. We obviously don't want to like push them too much if they're starting in. So maybe our A1 and 2 for the most part can be about the same. And then our B1 and 2, maybe one of those can be a main lift and the other could be more accessory based.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think the only thing I would probably change here in regards to a lifestyle client is possibly in these first supersets that we have, like the A1, A2. Depending on like these, I may split them up because I do think some of these are a lot like the upper body one's probably fine back to back.
Yeah, but leg
But
pressing,
yeah, but leg
yeah.
pressing, if you're doing it right and then going right into an RDL or sorry, a lateral raise, like obviously that's not too difficult, but it might be best to just kind of focus on that main movement, then get into some more accessory pieces after that. That was something I really used to like to do for people back, a few years back or fighters, I should say, because I always found that first movement to be something that was really important, obviously, and I
Mm-hmm.
wanted them to focus on. And then I would do like a tri-set following that allowed them to kind of hit a couple different important accessories. So I would probably maybe consider something like that. But I do think in regards to lifestyle, we did kind of build these out for lifestyle already. So like even with the 2 day a week one, obviously we kind of talked about this last week, but we built a day basically on each uh preceding or yeah preceding week
Mm-hmm.
and built that out in regards to sets and reps and whatnot. So I would say lifestyle wise, the only thing I'd really do is maybe take this and separate this out, if
Mm-hmm.
anything, um, just to kind of give them a little bit more rest early on so they can really hammer home that leg press, the split squat, and the chest press machine.
Mm-hmm.
And then that accessory piece after that just kind of be, either shift that down, like we could shift that down here and do a triset, or we could shift that, leave it here and kind of switch from there. But whatever makes the most sense for the individual at that point, that's probably what I would change.
I
Anything
like
else?
that change. I was gonna say that I usually, even for myself, my first movement usually isn't a superset, just because I like to focus in on that main movement for the day. And again, like put as much intent into feeling that movement as I can. And if I'm supersetting it, I'm gonna be a little more out of breath, a little tired, so I won't be able to focus as much. So I like that change too.
Cool. All right. Awesome. So I think we can kind of just get right into the half marathon. So let me do this. I'm going to label this lifestyle.
There we go. Nice. Perfetto.
Right. All right. So then we're going to talk about marathon training.
Okay. I
I'm just
like
going
it.
to relabel these.
When you hit save, it went to the next week, and I immediately was like, wait a minute. I could have swore he just wrote lifestyle next to it. It confused me. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
So marathon training. So obviously, and again, this is going to be kind of general, relatively fast, just kind of run through this. But with marathon training, obviously, as we start to get closer, in the beginning, it's you don't have to worry so much about the volume, right? Especially if you're going like half marathon, because there's really not too much volume, obviously, depending on who you're or how you're running.
Mm-hmm.
But like generally speaking, when I ran the half marathon a couple times, especially the second time, the training was a lot more structured. And inside of that training, there was, a couple lighter days, a couple like heavier volume days in regards to the running. So with that, the biggest thing that I usually look for is obviously taking account like what are you getting in running, right? And
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of impact, there's a lot of quad dominant movement, right? You're getting a lot of stress on the quads and the knees. So I try to stay away too much from anything that's like majorly like I try to stay away from more volume on the quads unless it's like super light volume on the quads,
Mm-hmm.
right? So like even looking through this, like chest press machine row is totally fine. Goblet squat would probably be okay. I might even stay away from this depending on, how I'm feeling, right? Um, and like these types of movements as well, I might stay away from these. These probably wouldn't be too bad, but maybe just kind of adjusting these in some capacity with the load. So like keeping it assisted works very well,
Can you
right?
move your mouse around really quick?
Yeah, why can you not see it?
I can't see it. So that part froze. When you were saying adjusting these,
Sorry. Wait, what about now?
there, I can see it now.
Oh,
That
I
was
didn't,
weird.
I
All
didn't
right,
click on the I didn't click on the screen.
got it. Okay.
Adjusting these, the goblet squat, and then
Mhm.
the single leg RDL and the assisted split squat. Because like here's the thing. Obviously, when you're running, there's a lot of stress that you accumulate on hips, knees, ankles, low back, that sort of thing, hip flexors, quads. And we want to just be aware of that so we're not doing too much in the week to basically like cause more damage there.
Mhm.
So with the chest press machine, with the seated cable row, these two are great movements for the upper body that really don't have too much of an effect on running or gait cycle. The goblet squat would obviously be one where I'd want to be a little bit cautious on how much weight I was actually doing here. And I think as we have this kind of set up, it's probably fine in the beginning. I personally like to do not so like very limited deep knee flexion when I'm running. So early on in this process, like if this was week one, this would probably be okay. But if this was like, say, a couple weeks before the actual event, I'd probably change this to some sort of like sled push, or I'd change this to some sort of what else?
Like a step up,
Yeah,
something with
yeah,
less
yeah.
eccentric. Yeah.
Step up. Um, anything else we can think of? So like,
I mean, you could do. Excuse me. Well, never mind. I was gonna say something, but that's a bad idea. I don't like it.
okay. So I think step up's probably a really good option as well. Just something that's, you know, challenging the leg, but isn't requiring such a deep stress on the knee
Mhm.
and the quad, right? And the reason why is because as we start to get going and as the miles start to accumulate inside of that, session or inside of that training block, this will catch up to you. You'll start to feel fatigue. A lot of people end up getting like runner's knee or
Mhm.
jumper's knee or whatever you want to call it, just patellar tendonitis, just because they're doing way too much volume on this sort of stuff. So we just want to be aware of that. And then obviously the farmer's carries, the planks, that stuff is really good. So I would say the only thing I would really change on this sort of thing, if you were running, is making this some sort of sled push or step up. And with the step up, trying not to go like super high box for that, right? So you're not you're avoiding that knee flexion. I really enjoy doing a super heavy weight with um a
Like a
shorter box.
12. Yeah.
Yeah, something where you're not getting a full knee flexion, but you're still able to kind of mimic that step up pattern.
Mhm.
Um, you know, even if you're a little bit more advanced, actually, just kind of thinking about this,
Like a.
if you're a
Let
little
me
bit
look at
more
what this
advanced,
is.
we could do like pin squats.
Yes, dude. I swear to God, I was gonna say. I wonder if he's gonna say pin squat. Let's
Yeah,
go.
pin squats, or even some sort of um like I like isometric movements like this. So
Yeah.
like holds. So we could do like a obviously like a pin squat from like a full standing position, or we could do
Mhm.
like a what would be called a overcoming isometric um squat. So
And you
essentially
could
with
even
the
do that like single leg or double. Like
yeah,
you can
yep.
mix that up a ton.
Yep. So those are really good to kind of work into a program for running, just because you're still getting a nice stress on the quad and the knee, and the isometrics do tend to help with like tendon health and making sure that they're healing properly and getting a little bit more adaptation to them. So these are really good options as well. And then the RDL is obviously like I'm a huge proponent of that when you're running, because there is so much stress going on with the quad. Making
Mhm.
sure we're doing a little bit more work with the hamstring and the glute is always crucial for hip health. Um, and then yeah, farmer's carry we're good, plank we're good, right?
Mhm.
And then obviously with the warm up, like these two right here are the bread and butter for for warming up to run. And then the other thing too, I would add in just to kind of add this here, low level plyometrics. So we're looking at like pogos, a skips, hops, downs, that sort of stuff. Like I would throw those in as well, pre-run or pre-workout, just so we're getting a little bit more buildup of that stuff. So we're like preparing the tendons a little bit better throughout the week. That way we're not just jumping into running, because the biggest problem I usually see inside of running is just a buildup of a buildup or accumulation of stress on the tendons, and they're just not ready for that sort of load. And a lot of people don't build up properly. They don't, basically rest enough after. And you'll see a lot of people who are just like consistently running at a really high volume.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something I have to be aware of because I'm heavier, right? So I'm like, probably 220 right now, which I haven't weighed myself and I'm afraid to. But not that I've been eating bad. I've just been like lifting heavy.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I look so much better. But I stepped on the scale a couple weeks ago and I was 220. And I was like, I feel like significantly, like I feel like I look leaner. I'm starting to see like ab outline. No, I know, but it's just like I just know how when I was running and I felt my best, I was at like 205. So I just want to make sure if I start running again like that, I get down to around that weight.
Mm.
And I'm saying that because like I've run a couple times recently, and that was the reason I checked my weight in the first place, because I ran and I felt a little bit slow, like a little bit heavy, a little bit slow. And that was probably why, because I weighed in at 220. But I've been trying to be a little bit more strict with that stuff and make sure that I'm planning everything properly. So I'm hoping within the next couple weeks I'm down to around that 210 mark as I run more. But we'll see.
All right.
No stress. So sled push, great. Step ups, great. Isometric squats, pin squats, overcoming isometrics, yielding isometrics. Any of that stuff is going to be really good to kind of help counteract a lot of the stress that we're getting from that. Plus any sort of low level plyometric or even full plyometric inside the warm up as well. So we're talking, depth drops,
broad jumps.
What else? We got like change of direction jumps, things
Hurdle
like that,
hops,
right?
stuff like that.
Yeah. So those are all really good as well that I would throw in before every single session, because that's just going to be really beneficial to do. And then again, if you're not used to lifting, then this is going to be a really smart thing to add inside of your training program, because this is going to be very helpful for a lot of the things you're not normally working on, and help keep up with some of the healing properties of these movements. Then, again, superset wise, I think is really good for running, just because it's efficient. It doesn't waste a lot of time. I think with running, the biggest thing is obviously doing what the bare minimum is. So a lot of your energy can be focused on running. If you have the time to recover and you can focus a little bit more, that's great. But I think superset wise, this layout right here is great. Maybe on this day, assisted split squats, maybe like, I think that would be more of like would you, I don't know. I guess we could change that.
I personally, like, if they're, like we said, we don't want to put too much stress on the knee in general. Something like that, you could even do like a single leg squat to a box. It's not a ton of stress. It's body weight. You just focus on stability a little more. Or you can even do something like switch A2, so single leg assisted RDL. We put that as A1. And then maybe out of a superset, you could do something like a kettlebell swap, like focus on some ankle stability, but that might make them tired. So I'd say probably B.
Actually, you know what I would probably do here, to be honest, is maybe get rid of this
altogether
and just have the single leg RDL, because that would be a nice hip focused movement. That's not so much weight or load bearing. It's a little bit more stability based. So that would be very helpful there, and allow us to kind of challenge the glute while still working on like that flexion extension of the hip. Yeah. Then we have the shoulder press machine, which I think is great. The lat pull down, which I think is great. Suitcase carry, we're getting a unilateral carry there. And then we have our half kneeling kettlebell chop. So I think those are all great as well. And then here, I'd probably change the leg press for some sort of hinge focused movement. So like, um, well, let me rephrase. So, and Jerry, you can tell me what you think your
Mm-hmm.
thoughts are here. The leg press obviously is a great movement. I think it can be overloaded a little bit more, but it's stable, obviously, because it's a machine. Or we could go with some sort of like trap bar deadlift or some sort of, um, let me think. I probably would have, depending on what we choose here. Like if we
Mm-hmm.
chose the sled push here, I may do some sort of like super light walking lunge
Mm-hmm.
that is focused on movement and like getting that gait cycle going of the hips rather than load. But
Mm-hmm.
that's definitely another option I would have here in regards to like training, because I would have some sort of lower body session that I'd like to do. But I would think that towards the end of the week, if this was a Friday session,
Mm-hmm.
having run probably twice already, having something that's a little bit lighter here at the beginning of the session, be focused on movement instead of like output. That would be
Mm-hmm.
a really good idea in regards to keeping them, some stress on the legs, get some adaptation, but also stay healthy.
Yeah. I think that that's a good idea. I also like if you did do a trap bar. I was gonna say I wouldn't do leg press just because I feel like that could be a lot of stress on the hip. Um, and then I mean if we're doing leg press, I'm sorry, if we're doing trap bar deadlift outside of like a walking lunge, I was thinking that could be like the heavier leg movement for the week, and you could
So
treat it
trap
more as a
bar.
hinge. Yeah, I would say trap bar for that. If we're not doing like a lighter walking lunge. Because obviously it depends on which days they're running too, how many days a week they're running, if they have a
Yeah, I
little
mean,
more
most
rest on the
times if you're
weekend.
running for like a half marathon properly, you're probably training at least or running at least 3 times a week.
Yeah.
I was running four,
Mm-hmm.
but you're usually probably looking at three days a week.
Yeah. And then if you do a trap bar, you could also like elevate it a little bit, kind of take it more so it's less of that knee flexion, but that kind of goes with the pin squat. So if we're looking for range of motion, I'd say walking lunge. If we're looking for a little bit of strength overall, because we don't really have too much strength building things besides the RDL. Was that a single leg RDL on day one or was that one? No,
This
we
was
had.
double dumbbell. Yeah, so
Oh,
regular.
okay. So we're hitting the hammies a ton then.
Yeah.
I'd say walking lunge is probably better because I thought that day one we didn't have that.
Yeah. So walking
Yep.
lunge. And that'll be like our deep, that would be our deep knee flexion. But again, like
Mm-hmm.
this is keeping this light, focus on like, we'll say focus on form rather than output.
Yeah.
So we don't want you to add like insane amount of weight here. We just want you to focus on stepping forward, getting that forward knee drive, getting that extension of the back hip, focusing on like that gait cycle motion of the hip. That's going to be a really good way to do that. And then obviously the lateral lunge or the lateral raise is going to be super simple movement you can add on top of it. Again, here I probably would maybe not superset these at the beginning because it's probably just not worth it, and maybe even get rid of this movement entirely.
Mm-hmm.
And just keep it where the lunge goes. Then we have the pullover and the quad extension, because this is a movement where I think the quad extension is really important, right? But this could also be, it depending on how the rest of the week looks, a seated hamstring curl,
Mm-hmm.
right? Just to kind of get a little bit more isometric on there, or isolation on the hamstring. But with the machine quad extension, this is giving us a little bit more specific work. And I like these because you can go a little bit lighter and do a lot of reps here. So like
Mm-hmm.
I would probably look at this at like 12 to 15 reps just to kind of really give a little bit of stimulus to the quad. And this
Mm-hmm.
also helps if there is any lingering pain. Like I did these a lot throughout my running on like later in the week, because it didn't challenge the rest of my leg. It was very simple to just kind of do like super light quad extensions and still feel like a little bit of a pump there without taking too much toll on my legs and the strength of like the quad.
Yeah. I think if we weren't doing, I also thought about this too. Like if we weren't doing the walking lunge or the quad extension, one of those was gone. I would probably put in like some form of isometric for like a hip flexion thing or a glute movement. So kind of like maybe like a single leg back elevated hold. So like a
Mm-hmm.
hip thrust on a bench, just holding a little bit heavier weight because
Yeah.
obviously you don't have to rep it out. So doing like some type of isometric there just to get the glute kind of squeezing a little bit, get it firing. But
Yeah.
I like quad extensions for knee health. I always feel really good when I do quad extensions. I give like a little bit of a pause at the top,
Yeah.
focus on the flex. And if you don't take them really heavy, like they do feel really good to just hold at the top.
Yeah. I think they're great, especially later in the week, because again, it's something that can be managed very well. It's not stability based, it's externally stabilized because of the
Mm-hmm.
machine. And we're kind of like really adjusting volume here based on the running in the week. So you're getting, heavier output movements where it's like chest press, seated cable row, sled push, RDL, farmer's carry, plank. Then we're running most likely. Then this is a very much a lighter day overall, and then another very much lighter day overall in regards to output,
Mm-hmm.
as the running volume takes its toll, and then we rest through the weekend. So that would kind of be how I would consider laying out like a 3-day session, and then obviously if
Mm-hmm.
it was 2 days, we take away. The running would probably be on Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, or Sunday, and that would be where we'd be at with that. So other thing to kind of think about here too, if you do have, like, I was always doing my very long runs on Sunday, so I would always do an upper body day on Monday, because that would be, obviously it's hard to do like a long run and then legs.
Mm-hmm.
So I would do a long run, upper body, and then kind of hit a lower body session a little bit later in the week. That's something that's very beneficial as well, because
Mm-hmm.
you want to manage volume throughout the week. So it gives you, obviously, Sunday you run, take the whole day to rest, do like a very much focused upper body session on Monday. So maybe we should change that. So maybe this would look like this instead.
Mm-hmm.
So it looks like this. So it's like upper, 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 right? And then on Wednesday, it's like single leg RDL, sled push. Maybe we would switch this in some capacity. Maybe we go like, let's see. Actually, like maybe this isn't a bad idea if we go to hold on one sec. So we go cable pull over here,
Mm-hmm.
and we go RDL here,
Nice.
and we switch like that or something like that, similar to that. That would probably look a
Mm-hmm.
little bit better, because you're getting your run. So your run on Tuesday, legs, run, a little bit of a upper body, or well, this actually tends to be a little
I
bit
was gonna
lower.
say it's pretty lower.
Maybe we probably actually change this a little bit more for upper body. So maybe go, um, probably pick.
I'd say keep the walking lunge for the lighter movement, just to again take it through range of
Yeah,
motion, and then the heavier stuff we could just swap out.
yeah. And honestly, with these two, I'd probably go like, again, focus on form. Like
Yeah.
don't push the weight too much, because um again, as we're later in the week here, this would give us a little bit more stress on the lower body.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe if I was looking at this, I'd probably swap one of these out for an upper body movement, or figure something out where we're taking away another day here. Like maybe this is switching or the sled push is switching, but this would give us a little bit more rest at the beginning of the week, where it's like Saturday run, Sunday long run, Monday's technically like a rest day for the legs, because we're
Mm-hmm.
working on the upper body, and then we're getting back into the week. So that was very similar to what I was doing when I was doing that. I probably did a little too much legs when I was running, but I didn't really affect my running. So that's probably what I would do here. Anything else to add to that?
No, I think that's good.
Cool.
I will say, as far as the lifestyle one that we went over earlier, I think low level plyometrics wouldn't be a bad idea for that too. I think more people should be doing at least some form of low level.
Yeah,
We don't have to add it in now, obviously, but I'll just say that as a side note that most people should get a little bit of plyometrics in their life, just to
I agree. I agree
help with their
100%.
power and movement.
Yeah, I think it's also like sprinting as well. It's like, if you can, doesn't have to be like, Usain Bolt sprinting, but the
Yeah.
more output you can have, or the intention you can have to move really fast, is very beneficial long term
Mhm.
for like your health.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll talk about the last two here. We got powerlifting. Powerlifting obviously is a lot different, right? Now, if we were going to look at this from a 3-day a week schedule, obviously we would have to swap this out for the main movement being like bench press, and then back squat
Mm-hmm.
and deadlift,
Deadlift.
right?
A very good deadlift.
Deadlift. So we would obviously be focusing these sessions around bench press, back squat, deadlift, and that would be
Mhm.
number one priority, because obviously if you're competing in those movements, that's where you'd want to see. If I was going to do a 3-day movement, I would personally probably go with some sort of like condensed conjugate model. Um, but obviously with like 3 days, it's a little bit tougher because conjugate's 4 days. But doing some sort of so here's the other thing too. Obviously with powerlifting,
Yeah,
there's
I was gonna say we need
percentages.
to change up the
So we
reps and
like, even
rest.
if we were just being very general, right? Like 5 sets times 5 reps at,
Mm-hmm.
let's say 80%. And this is just obviously quickly running through this, but we'd be working a lot more at the percentages here
Mm-hmm.
of the 1 rep max, percent of 1 RM. So adding this on here, adding that there, and adding that there, right? So adding that in, that would be like beginning phase of like, we got a bench, we got a back squat, we got a deadlift, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then from here, the things we would really be looking at are what are the supporting pieces that are going to help us with the back squat, deadlift, and bench. That's very dependent, obviously, on the individual. But if we're just
Mm-hmm.
going to go like general powerlifting program, if we're going to just build one, then having a row movement here isn't a bad idea at all.
Mm-hmm.
Probably want to take out the goblet squat, probably want to take out the RDL. And we want to look at, again, some sort of like, what's something simple we can focus on here? So bench press, obviously we have like a seated cable row. We could
Mm-hmm.
look at some sort of assisting upper body movement, like uh
I mean, if we have the
just trying to think of like what I would want to put there.
yeah, I mean, I know that um, arms obviously like we don't want to hit those too much, but hitting a tricep movement on the same day wouldn't be terrible because you need the stimulus. But
Yeah, so we could go like,
yeah,
cable tricep extension,
mm-hmm.
and then we could go, we're not going to do 80% of your
Yeah,
1 rep max.
I like to 1 rep max my tricep extensions.
What did I just do here?
How did you just highlight that?
I don't know.
Finding out new features. Here we go.
There we go.
All right.
So some sort of tricep extension, maybe some sort of, so we got obviously the bench press, we have the antagonistic movement for the seated cable row, tricep extension. Then we'd probably want to remove this as well. And
Mm-hmm.
then we'd probably want to go with some sort of another like supporting chest movement. So we could go like chest flies,
Yeah.
chest fly machine. Probably these reps would most likely change throughout
Yeah.
depending
Yeah.
on what they needed to do. And I know with a lot of powerlifting programs, there's, the volume gets to be a lot on this main movement, and that's where a
Mm-hmm.
lot of the focus and output goes. So this stuff tends to be like, again, a little bit more supporting, less volume, less output, but obviously like getting you better at that movement. So if we were to think about a general conversation or a general program when having a conversation about powerlifting, the bench press is A1. We're putting all our time and effort into that at that very high percentage because we're getting, basically 80 to 90% inside of our training.
Mm-hmm.
Then we'd get some sort of movement where I'd want to think of working on the opposite movement, right? Just to keep it very simple in layman's terms. Create some sort of rowing position. This could be a seated cable row. This could be like a chest supported row. This could be a seal row. This could be a 3-point row. This could be a bent over, like a barbell row,
Mm-hmm.
like whatever helps in that setting and feels best for the individual. Then we could go with some sort of, again, I don't know, would you do a chest movement first, or would you do that after the row?
I would do it after the row only to get more rest in between so you can put more of an emphasis on the weight. Obviously with a chest fly, like you're not going to be throwing too much weight around, but being able to tax it to the best of your ability will probably be better. I was gonna say arms definitely shouldn't be the next thing that we do, so it should be more toward the end just to get it. But um, I would probably go bench, cable row, chest fly. I would maybe even hit like something for the shoulder, if anything.
Cool.
if
So
we're
yeah,
trying
so
to
maybe we go
focus.
like dumbbell lateral raise,
Yeah.
and then we'll hit some tricep stuff after that. So
Mm-hmm.
this again, very general. Obviously, a very in-depth powerlifting program would look a lot different than this, but
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
kind of give you a rough idea of how our program would change if you were training for other things, right? So from here, we got the back squat. So same idea here. We'd want to look at something that was more supporting. So this is where I'd probably go dumbbell RDL of some
Mm-hmm.
kind, and that would be antagonistic movement to the back squat. Then I would look at some sort of well, actually, let me rephrase here and step back just a bit. One thing I would look to do here is do a leg press of some kind after the back squat in some capacity, because one of the things I really enjoyed when I was powerlifting a lot more was obviously the back squat's very externally or internally stabilized,
Mm-hmm.
but the leg press is very externally stabilized with the machine. And I've talked about this a lot before, but this gives us an opportunity to really just focus on overall strength of the legs while working on like the skill of the back squat. And we're going to be very taxed after this movement, but it's a good idea to do something like this after, so we can just fully focus on basically just hammering home the legs from that point and getting super strong.
I like
Then
that
I
too
would,
because the amount of axial fatigue that you're gonna have from something like a back squat versus a leg press. So like obviously like your core to some degree will be a limiting factor of your back squat. Your legs are pretty strong. So being able to tax the legs just a little bit more with something where you don't have to worry about that support
yeah,
is huge.
yeah, and I think it's very beneficial in this setting. So then I would go with some sort of like dumbbell RDL, and then probably from here, to be completely honest, I would probably go with a machine quad extension and some sort of seated hamstring curl. And tell me your thoughts on that. But that would, to me, that would put a really good emphasis on obviously isolating the quads and the hamstrings, give us a nice focus where we're focusing on the back squat. Then we're basically working on absolute strength with the leg press. And then we're working on a hinge pattern, which is like an antagonistic movement for just overall hip health. Then we're working on the quads and hamstrings by themselves. And that to me looks like a really solid, like, day in regards to training the legs. What do you think?
Yeah, the only thing is I'd be worried about hamstring recoverability before we hit deadlift on the next day.
Yeah.
So that's like
But
the volume might be a lot, but it depends on the person obviously too. But I just know that the hamstrings stay sore for longer. So
so maybe we do.
we could also do like a lower upper lower and separate the two by a few days.
Yeah,
So
actually,
we could
maybe
just
we do
switch the
that
two
instead.
days.
So we look like this,
Yeah.
or maybe the deadlift first.
Yeah, I would say
So
I
actually, or go
personally like
ahead.
squatting before deadlift during the
Yeah,
week. I feel like deadlift just rips the back apart. So like your lumbar extensors are going to be kind of fried after deadlifting really heavy. So having the weekend to recover before you go to the back squat will probably be better than if you were
yeah,
to do deadlift in the beginning and then have to hit back squat a few days later.
yeah. That makes sense. All right, cool. So then we'll basically structure this as back squat first, or lower body push first, upper what?
I was thinking maybe deadlift first because we'll have 4 day rest in between with the upper day there.
That's what I
Deadlift
was
probably
thinking.
is deadlift's probably better first.
Yeah, that's what
So
I was
day
thinking
three
because
should
I
be day
think
one. Day one should be day three.
so. We'll swap this around.
Yeah.
Day one should be day three, and day three should be day one. Cool.
Indubitably.
So then if we're going to obviously adjust the deadlift, so we're working at our deadlift percentage. So with the deadlift, there's a couple different options we can go with here. Now, obviously, the deadlift is probably of the three, this is going to be probably the most taxing
Mm-hmm.
on the central nervous system, just because we can lift the most amount of weight at a single point, right? So, what are some of your favorites in regards to accessories for the deadlift? I have a couple
Honestly,
ideas, but I'll let you go first.
are you thinking more for like lower or just like in general, like to work
Yeah,
the
in general, yeah.
hamstrings more? Okay. Honestly, I like something like a kickstand movement. So something that you're a little more stable, but even like trap bar isos where you're just kind of pulling a little bit toward the top. I like those, but I wouldn't want to do it directly after a deadlift, I probably
I
end up.
like I like 45-degree hip extensions
I would say I probably end up
because
doing that on a
essentially
different day.
you're basically like focusing on the like the glute here, and you're
Mm-hmm.
able to isolate that a little bit more. And I think these are just really beneficial overall, whether
Mm-hmm.
you're getting stronger or, obviously like working on a powerlifting program. From there, I probably, depending on if this was the case, then I might switch these earlier because I'd want to also work on some sort of specific hip adduction and abduction.
Mm-hmm.
I think those are, because the one thing we're going to want to be aware of inside of like a deadlift session is like a real true deadlift session. We're probably not going to get too much more done that day at like a super high level
Mm-hmm.
just because it's so fatiguing, right? And we also want to be aware of the rest of the week here. So we'd want to go very high stress, high output, and then
Mm-hmm.
kind of lower that output as the session goes on and the skill of that. So we think like deadlift at the beginning, hip extension after, and then we're going like machine based movements to basically like end the session. Maybe some core after this. So maybe we go like core circuit, or we'll go core carry circuit
Mm-hmm.
of
I
some
mean, for
kind.
me, honestly, even like a 45-degree hip extension, like just after deadlift, is rough. That's a hard combo just for the lower back.
Yeah, and
But
that might even
I
be
mean,
too much too. But like
yeah,
I think, to me, if you're doing this the right way, you should be really isolating like the glutes here,
yeah,
and focusing on that. And that would be kind of like my main focus here. But the other thing obviously would be like swapping this here and then sending this here instead,
yeah.
or some core like something like this.
I think a hamstring curl post deadlift would be good, and then 45-degree hip extension would be a good thing to add on to that squat day. Just again, I'm just thinking in terms of like lower back fatigue. Like you probably won't get too much out of a hip extension after doing those 5 heavy sets of deadlift.
Yeah. So maybe that's the tweak there. Obviously, running through this pretty quickly, but
Mm-hmm.
these are just some of the ideas that I would think make the most sense in regards to what a powerlifting program might look like in just a general layout of like based off this program if we were going to switch it to somebody. Now, obviously, if someone was like competing, this would look a lot different too, because we would have to
Mm-hmm.
look at their actual weaknesses, the percentages that they're working at. But this is the kind of the layout or where my head would go in regards to like that layout overall.
Yeah, and those rest periods are going to be far longer than your
Yeah, yeah,
typical one for pretty much every other program that we've done so far.
yeah, 100%. So, all right, and then last but not least, we got jujitsu. So the biggest thing with jujitsu is obviously it's a very taxing sport, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot going on in the actual training session, and we want to be aware of that. So with jujitsu, there's a couple things inside of actual training that we want to account for. One of them is obviously there's a lot of isometric strength going on. There's a lot of gripping, grabbing, hugging, squeezing. So
Mm-hmm.
that is very, muscular in and of itself. There's a lot of, you know, basically contractions going on inside of a jujitsu session, and that they're very tough contractions because you're either holding someone, gripping something, um, you know, maintaining certain positions. You're like it gets very taxing on the body, so we want to be aware of that inside of a program. And I tend to go with jujitsu, especially in like a general setting. I like to cover a lot of bases inside of the program. And I try to look at what are the things that they're not getting inside of their actual training and how we can kind of supplement that inside of it. So, looking at this, I always like to go some sort of like upper, like again, full body day, leading with upper, one leading with lower, and then another like bodybuilding day would probably be the end. So I'll kind of walk us through how I'd switch this, but I'd probably go with some sort of like dumbbell bench press here. I'd go with some sort of like 3 point row.
Mm-hmm.
And then the goblet squat would probably be good. I would again focus this on range of motion here as opposed to like full
Like
output
overall
on that.
strength. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Just focus on like moving, getting some range of motion in the knees because jujitsu people are just terrible range of motion. for the most part. Oh, some of them don't, I should say, but usually
I
the
mean,
ones who,
that's something that I want to add is we're going into this. We're going into it with the mind of, even if this is like a competition jujitsu or like your average person doing jujitsu,
yeah,
people get hurt because you're put in weird situations. Pretty much
yeah,
everyone I've met who has done jujitsu has said like they've had a neck thing, a shoulder thing, an elbow or a knee thing. Like it's just something that we got to keep in mind that it's it's a taxing workout, but it also puts you in some pretty what's the word, compromising positions. So that's
yeah.
something we want to have strength in all range of motion, and that's why range of motion's huge for something like goblet squat there.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing with jujitsu that I like to focus on is just hitting those ranges of motion, right? So
Yep. Yep.
focus on a squat, focus on a hinge, focus on a push, pull, vertical and horizontal, focus on a single leg squat, a single leg hinge, and then focus on a core and carry and some sort of rotation because I find myself when I train that I'm always twisting. Like
Mm-hmm.
I just whether it be because I'm sometimes when you're passing guard or you're getting into guard or you're maintaining some positions, your legs are going one way or upper body's going the other, and you kind of have to maintain tension while you're
Mm-hmm.
doing certain things. So I like to work on rotation. I like to work on all seven of those patterns and make sure I'm at least at the bare minimum we're seeing that throughout the week. And I think that's another thing with jujitsu. A lot of people will use powerlifting programs inside of jujitsu, which is fine,
Mm-hmm.
but we want to be aware that obviously if you're doing a lot of jujitsu, you're basically getting a weightlifting session inside of each of those sessions because of
Mm-hmm.
the isometric tension. And if you do the gi, if you train in the gi, there's a lot of pulling and gripping and pushing, and it's a very hard sport to compete with. So when we lift, I usually honestly recommend only twice a week if you're training pretty consistently. But if you're training 3 days a week, then we do some sort of dumbbell, some sort of 3 point row, the goblet squat we have, the RDL, farmer's carry, plank. So this day looks really good to me here. Then we would do some sort of, let's see, probably, actually, you know what I'd probably do here is I would probably switch this and this. And this would be like our lower body focus day. And I would probably go with some sort of, yes, we got leg press here, which I like. I think that's a really good movement because I think one of the things with that I like to do in MMA sports or in mixed martial arts is using the goblet squat as an accessory piece for range of motion and then using the leg press as the movement for full output or full strength output, if that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense. Uh,
Yeah, it does.
yeah. All right. Then we would obviously work on, we could swap this out for, we could leave this as the dumbbell lateral raise because we got the push horizontal, we got the pull horizontal. Actually, we'd probably go with some sort of pull up here because I think those are really important inside of jujitsu. Then we could work on, so we got horizontal uh, push. So we could go, what? Got something?
No, I was just looking at the days. So I was gonna say
Okay.
we could do like something for shoulder there.
Yeah. So we got maybe this one we'll do the lateral raise, dumbbell lateral raise. And we could keep the machine quad extension here, or we could swap this out for some sort. Like again, another thing really important, hamstring work. So like I'd probably actually switch this out for a seated hamstring curl here because there's not a lot of specific hamstring work you're going to get inside of jujitsu. And I think that it's really important to have strong glutes and hamstrings and make sure whether it's moving out of position or bridging is another huge piece of jujitsu that for escapes or trying to kind of maintain some certain positions, but bridging is really important. So I think obviously working on the hamstring, working on that hip extension, that's huge. And then we have another core carry movement with the side bend and the front rack carry. And then on the third day, this is usually like I really like to go like a very specific bodybuilding focused day here. So reason being is like the week can get pretty taxing, and if we're adding on a lot of stress through like the movements, it could catch up pretty quick. So this is a day that I'll usually do a lot of arm
More,
work.
yeah,
Um,
isolation stuff.
yeah, so like arm work, I would do like some sort of high rep, um, like cable lat pull down. We could go with like a shoulder press machine. We could go with like a dumbbell overhead press here, and then I would probably remove one of these So let's say we get rid of the split squat, and then
Yeah.
we can work on just like a walking lunge. And then that would probably be what I would look at on like the fourth day. Just basic patterns, not
Third.
really doing what, or third day, sorry. Um, I would probably just look at basic patterns, things that they can get a good pump on, a little bit higher rep range here, just so they can work through like a good range of motion and not really worry about the weight. And we're gonna go, let's say 12 to 15. 12 to 15. And this gives us an opportunity to get some really good work in without taking too much away from us, like physically and central nervous system wise. And this allows like a really good output for the week, covering all the main moving parts. We got horizontal push pull, horizontal row, which I just said, sorry, goblet squat, RDL with a hinge, core carry with unilateral and bilateral, bilateral. Sorry,
You got it. You got it.
talking for 4 hours today.
It happens, bro. It happens.
Uh, plank, side bends. We're working on some lateral extension and flexion. Then we got obviously our pulls, vertical. We got the leg press, which is a externally stabilized movement, allows us to work a little bit more strength on the legs. Then we got, again, this is a unilateral or a single leg squat where we're working through that gait cycle. Same idea, just kind of hip function. And I think the walking lunge is probably the best hip function movement we can do. Then we have the overhead press, which is our vertical push. And then we just have some really solid vertical pulling, with the cable lat pull down, just a position you're not going to see very often in life. And then dumbbell curls and tricep extensions from there. So
I would also throw some at least low level plyos in there as well. Just for
yeah,
like
100%. Sorry,
a lot
yeah.
of
So that's another
explosiveness.
thing
Yeah.
as well. Like, especially in jujitsu, working on those low level plyometrics are important just because it is an athletic sport, especially if, you're starting from the feet, you're working through some of these positions. You want to have a strong base, and the low level plyometrics are gonna help you do that. So,
Mm-hmm.
but that's everything for today. We obviously went through lifestyle, we went through marathon, we went through powerlifting, and then we went through jujitsu. So I think those are very general. And like I said, these are not as in depth as we would provide somebody, but this is just a general overview. If we were going to take what we designed from Chat GPT, change that into an actual program, and then adjust that based on some of the main things that people will partake in inside of their own fitness journey, if that makes sense. So
Yeah, I think it's cool to look at too because I guarantee like all those little differences that we added between the programs, even down to plyos and warm up, it's just there's a lot more that goes into it than just like, oh, do this for this many reps. Like your cookie cutter 3 sets of 10 that you see with pretty much everything. There's a lot that goes into it, especially when you have a specific goal in mind or some type of competition.
yeah. So I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys got some good ideas from that, or at least some insight onto how you could, adjust. Obviously, this has been like a 3-part series. So if you haven't, go back and listen to part 1 and part 2 so you can understand kind of where we're at with all this and the buildup. And I think that's it. Obviously, if you guys want to work with us, reach out on Instagram at Coach Jerry Hayes or at Coach BG, at BG Perform _. Or you can reach out on www.bgperform.com/training. You can fill out all the information there, fill out the intake form, or Jerry and myself will get back to you as soon as possible. And if you would like to work with Jerry or myself, you can just refer or request that on the intake form. So if you want to work with Jerry, I'll send that right over to Jerry so he can see it. And if you want to work with me, you can just obviously leave it blank or just leave my name there. And then if you are a coach who's been listening, reach out about the Coach Connect. We're still taking on new coaches at our founding member rate. So we're on module 4. We just had a really good conversation this morning about coaching systems for clients. So making sure you have a system when someone walks through the door as a client, and the process of getting someone from a lead into an actual client. So outside of that, obviously check in with Behind the Design podcast, BG Perform Reacts, and all the content that I'm posting weekly and daily. And yeah, I think that's about it. I appreciate you guys as always, and we will see you guys next time. Peace.